Well, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome everyone to our Willis Long and Friends conversation for January, the new year. And I have to say, I'm just thrilled about today's conversation because it's going to be about fathers, fatherhood and early childhood, and the experience of fathers in this, in their lives with their families and the importance of that. But let me start first. Unfortunately, my dear friend Dana's gotten locked up with some issues related to computers. I think she may be joining us soon, but I'm really thrilled to try to set the stage for our good work. And that is that we are really here in our Willis Long and Friends are trying to create conversations about the intentional and thought-provoking efforts to advance early relational health for improving the family experience and the community experience. It's really fun to be together with our different colleagues and experts with personal stories, their own experiences of activities, and efforts that are building groundbreaking research and advocacy efforts. And our coordinating center at CSSP really seeks to advance early relational health across early childhood communities and the health systems. We really believe there's a paradigm shift that has to be brought forward, that health and future well-being is relational, and it's deeply important to listen to the voices of families, the lived experience that everyday families have with systems and with communities and with those that are around them. And so we love to have opportunities to have deep conversations with both thought leaders, families, friends, all of which will inspire us. And today we're going to have that kind of experience, I know. Really going to focus on a discussion about early relational health with members from the Washington Fatherhood Council. And I'm so excited because two of my dear friends, especially a longtime friend, Ann Stone, and then Stephen Thibert, that I've met through some of our work, are people that I know, but also they brought along some friends that we can have conversation with too. Let me tell you a little bit about Ann Stone. She's the Washington State Interagency Fatherhood Council Director at the Department of Social and Health Systems. More importantly, Ann and I go way back. We worked together in Oregon a number of years around early childhood system building. We worked at the Arts Center for Developmental Health. We then together moved into the leadership of the Oregon Pediatric Society until I left for HRSA. And then Ann went on to do great work in Washington, and now, of course, with this Washington Fatherhood Council. We had many conversations about the importance of relationships, the importance of listening to families, and the family experience. And then Stephen Thibert's a member of our Family Network Collaborative of our coordinating center work around early childhood. He's the father of a young son who lives with him part-time in a custody agreement that you'll hear about. But he's a passionate believer of the voice of fathers, the voice around early relational health work, and we're just thrilled to have his participation. And I went to Stephen to say, are there other friends around you that you could bring to create this conversation today about the fatherhood experiences and early relational health? So, Dana, I just saw that you came on with us. Do you want to make some entry remarks to say hello? And then
I would love to. Hello, everyone. My name is Dana Long. I'm so glad to be part of Willis and Friends. I am a practicing pediatrician, and the great thing about me is I can bring relevance to all of our conversations as you see me sort of in a mask hiding away in an office for this call. I'm really pleased to hear from Stephen and our other guests about the Fatherhood Initiative and how fatherhood and early relational health really blend together, and sort of what fathers bring to parenting, what are the challenges around early relational health, and how we as providers and policymakers and advocates can really best support fathers. So thanks for having me today.
great, Dana. And so, Anne, let me turn to you and Stephen.
Stephen, you want me to kick it off?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So good morning, good afternoon. As David said, I've been tromping around the world of early childhood for 20 plus years, and I feel so honored to have fallen into being one of the founding parents of the Washington Fatherhood Council. And we're really trying to create a movement across our state and across our country around improving the access and belonging of fathers in our systems. They are very, very marginalized in a maternal child world. And so I've had the honor of working with this group since its inception. And And we have an amazing group of fathers that are the core to the work, really. We are all about lifting up fathers' voices to change systems. So I want to do just a little bit of an overview. We're a little bit behind, and I want to make sure we save enough time to hear some stories and have a conversation with the dads that have joined us today. But the thing I want to really underscore is the positive and protective impact of fatherhood and father-child bond on early development is undeniable. We keep doing research on, do dads matter? We know dads matter. I don't know why we keep doing that research. We know that child and family well-being is improved when fathers are positively involved. And I want to talk about the word fathers a little bit so people don't get anxious, because it causes anxiety. Fathers, father figures all play a unique, important role in children's development. There is an important and special relationship, particularly because of our culture around biological father and how much bio dads feel like they've been pushed aside. And so we do talk about that, but we also talk about same-gendered parenting, trans parenting. There is amazing, wonderful data around all of that. And it really comes down to two different brains that have to interact with kids to create the kind of social emotional wellness that we want and the kind of resiliency that we want for kiddos as they go into their later years. So don't get too hung up on, I'm going to use fathers as a shorthand. We do mean biological fathers, but we do know there are other loving adults, male or male-identified adults in the lives of kiddos. So, and I'm also going to talk about generalizations between moms and dads. So we'll talk a little bit about the differences and why those differences are important before we talk to our dads. The last thing I'm going to say is fathers should have the support and resources they need to become the dads that they aspire to for their kids. We do not provide them. We have done a scan in our state, and we know from our friends across the country, we have very, very little investment in culturally specific services for dads, and even less for moms about dads or for co-parenting. And that is a problem because we expect that dad's just going to figure it out on his own. There's a lot of dads that are really isolated. But they are language modelers, they are brain stimulators, they are affect regulators. Moms are about affect expression. Dads are about, okay, rein that in. We got a little too wild here. Limit setting and the ability in later life to really understand boundaries, and all of those are laid in the first few years. Their role is definitely unique, and it really enhances mother-child relationships and adjustment, and the absence of dads. You know, you've seen all that negative data. It's really, really powerfully impactful when you look at the big bad outcomes in adolescence, and when we didn't do what we needed to do in early childhood to support the early relational health of that kiddo and that pair. So and don't get too hung up either on residential or non-residential fathers, thinking, well, if they're not with babes all the time, it doesn't matter. It absolutely does. Non-resident dads can have just as influential a role in the development of their child. And when you look at the data, conversely, is parenting part of their identity? It's absolutely dead the same for moms and dads. Parents feel just as strongly regardless of gender. So what do we do about the biases and the stigmas? There are so many things in our world that are within our current regulatory world that we could be doing. We've talked about all kinds of strategies. We're working on different strategies, but think about, what would we do prenatally? Could we do prenatal groups for dads in practices where we bring fathers together and say, hey, how does it feel? What are your worries? What are your hopes? When you look at the data around the Fragile Families study, a very influential 25-year longitudinal look, moms want dads there. When they asked mom, and these are pretty high risk, pretty high poverty, unmarried, mostly in 3 different cities. And so these are pretty fragile relationships, but 70 to 80, 90%, depending on whether they're living together or cohabitating, visiting, romantically involved, whatever, said, yeah, I want dad there. But by the time they get to 5, only 35% of them are. So what happened in early childhood? How did we not scaffold that dad and that couple? So prenatal groups would be great because dad could prepare. Then what do we do around the birth? What do we do to help provide skin-to-skin contact, which we know is so important for bonding and attachment? What do we do around postpartum depression screening for both parents? How do we think about leave policies? And remember, when you talk about parental leave policies for fathers, you're assuming that they have a job that would let them. If it's an hourly job and they're not there, they don't get paid. And a lot of dads have said back to us, well, I may have the leave, but there is a stigma against me taking it. Dads don't take leave. Moms take leave. So we still have that in our culture pretty strongly. And then think about in primary care and other client contact situations, how do we do a comprehensive health history that asks about dad if he's not the presenting parent? If mom walks into a practice and dad's not there, what do we do? How do we ask? How do we engage? What could we do to get anticipatory guidance, or the kinds of things that we say to families around what to do next? How do we get that to dad if dad isn't present? How do we think about maybe referrals for fathers? So these are really high contact times, right? The first year of life, we have about how many Bright Futures appointments? I lost track of that number, but there's a lot of times where that family is in contact with folks that could be helping support them. And how often do we actually think about father and include them? So we do a series of Dad Allies sessions around the state, and one of them was on home visiting, fathers matter in home visiting. And afterwards, one of our wraparound service providers called me and he said, "Ann, you turned on my dad switch. We have completely changed how we do our wraparound meetings, how we do our intake, how we set up our primary contact, because I realized dad was never there. And I couldn't figure out why not. And then I realized because I didn't invite him, because I did the session when he couldn't come, because. So it wasn't a big shift, but it was a big shift. Now he has a very different relationship with both parents, regardless of whether they're co-parenting. And then what do we do around co-parenting, particularly in the early years? How do we provide support to reduce that often high stress relationship? Babies feel all that stress that's going on between parents. And then as they get older, they absolutely know. But we have almost next to no resources for co-parenting. So what could we do to change that? And then the last thing, I just want to leave the preachy part and getting into the narrative with sort of the idea of how do we change the questions? So, child support, child welfare, juvenile justice, all of these systems are the result of, and I truly believe this to the bottom of my toes, probably because of the Willis influence, but we didn't do what we needed to do in the first few years. And now we have these kids and families that are struggling. So how do we ask different questions about increasing fatherhood involvement and supports and co-parenting supports that are father friendly, rather than asking the questions, does it matter? So we know it matters. And we've got 3 dads with us today that are going to talk to us about why it matters. So we're going to jump into that. But I just wanted to give you sort of here's some things that we could be doing right now, inspiration, and hopefully some of those can strike a chord with you and turn on your dad switch. So let's start with quick introductions, and then we just have 3 or 4 questions. We're going to have a conversation together. So Tui, do you want to start us off with a quick introduction of who you are and how you came to, what was your dad path? The short version, Tui. You have a pretty complicated story.
Yeah, thank you, Ann. First, thank you for the opportunity. I'm glad to be here to share my story. My name is Tui. I'm a single father of 7 with 4 co-creators. I don't use the word baby mama or baby daddy, too much negative connotation that goes with it, so I like to use the word co-creators. Let's see. I came through my journey of fatherhood, started way back when I was a child, when my dad dipped out on us. My dad left when I was about 10 years old. It was about 9, 10. I had just moved here from the islands of Samoa, and he dipped out, and I had to figure everything else out. I'm the oldest of 5 with my mom and dad's kids. Got into a lot of trouble, made some grown-up decisions at a young age. Some of those decisions landed me in jail. Some of those decisions also landed me getting shot. And some of those decisions landed me in the military. So, yep. Now I'm, like I said, single parent of 7. I'm there for all my kids. I have I have 6 of my kids 50-50 parenting plan.
Which is miraculous,
Yeah,
by the way.
you
That
don't.
is unheard of.
It's tough. It was a long, tough journey. Still battling every day to get it. I'm working on getting my son 50-50, but that's a whole nother journey we'll go through. But yeah, that's a short, condensed version of how I came to be here.
And we'll talk more about some of those struggles and sort of, the stigmas that you all face, because I think that's really helpful for the folks that are joining us. Stasi, you want to introduce yourself and just give us also a little bit of your journey to this beautiful babe that you have behind you there. Turn your mic on, dude.
Hey, I'm Stasi. I'm 24 years old. I got a daughter who's 2, about to be 3 in February. At the time of my daughter being pregnant, I was working a full-time job, and around the time that she was born, I was already living somewhere else, not with the mom. But when she was born, she actually came out a dope baby, and I had to try to get my daughter, even though they UA'd me and all this other stuff. They still didn't want to give me my daughter because, I don't know, just biasness and being the fact that I had to do like a 12-step program through CPS, and so I did all that, and pretty much some of the challenges I faced and all that is I didn't have any experience with early development nor with the child when it came to like support and healthy development and knowledge and all that. I was pretty lacking all that. So I kind of, with a couple resources, and I ended up having to take my own time off of work. They didn't give me the option to do like a leave thing because I guess it didn't apply to me or something like that when I did try to do that. So I ended up taking time off and set up a daycare, and then I would end up going back to work that way. And then I quit work and started going to college, and then pretty much that's where I'm at now.
So, Stasi, tell us about, is mom involved?
No, that from early on. After the CPS case was started, when she was first born, she went to treatment, and that was kind of part of the stipulation to get her kid back. And then when she got out of treatment, she ended up relapsing, and her parents were going to kick her out. And I got a call from her parents that said that they're kicking her out, and they said I should probably come get my daughter because she's going with her. And I was like, I can't do that. I got a full-time job. And then they're like, well, she's going on the road with them. So I was like, okay, shit, I should probably go get her.
So you became dad completely unprepared. Nobody.
Yeah, absolutely unprepared. I thought it was going to be, 50-50 and all that. But in the back of my head, I'd been kind of, I don't know, something told me that I possibly, but so definitely, caught me off guard completely. And I literally had to call my work and be like, hey, I can't come to work tomorrow. And is it possible to get this, like some kind of, pay as I'm not working? And they're like, no, we're just going to give you time off to where you're just not going to get paid, but you're not going to get fired. And I was like, okay, it's better than get fired. So, yeah.
Right. And how do you live on that? We'll
Exactly,
talk more.
yeah.
We'll talk more, Stasi. We'll talk more. But yeah, wow, what an introduction into fatherhood, right? One day you're not, one day you are. Yeah. Stephen, you want to introduce yourself? I know these guys know you, but the folks in the audience, and then give us your journey into fatherhood.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Stephen Thibert. Super grateful to be here. Thanks for the opportunity, David. And so I'm a father of a 2-year-old, Theodore. He just turned 2 in December. And I have about 30% custody of him right now. When he's 7, it'll be 50-50. But my journey into fatherhood, well, similar but different than Tui's story. My dad was always there physically, but never really there emotionally, and never really there to teach me how to be a man. So this early relational health work speaks to me because I was never, I don't think I really had that with my dad. I think I had some of that from my mom, and there was some from my dad in terms of like physically being there when I was younger, but there was a real lack of an emotional connection and upbringing. So that's something I always wanted to do differently. I didn't really know how to do that, but I know I always wanted to be a dad, and I just always wanted to be a good dad. So what does that mean, right? And so that's kind of been this whole journey. But me and my son's mom, I found out I was going to be a dad during COVID. So right when we got into lockdown in March of 2020, she's like, "Oh, I have something to tell you. I'm pregnant." And I was like, "Oh, wow." There's a lot of uncertainties right now in the world, but I knew that I was going to be a dad in 9 months. So, I did my best to prepare. Unfortunately, that situation did not work out between me and his mother, and we split when he was 5 months old. And so went through a really rough custody battle with his mom. That was unfortunate. That's a whole nother story and journey for itself, but it's a feel good story because now, past all the animosity and the battling, we've been settled for over a year now, and we're on really good terms, and we work outside the parenting plan and do what's in the best interest of our child, and we communicate really well. So I think we're doing a really good job of co-parenting, but essentially I've been a single dad since he was 5 months old. So it's been learning how to, go about that as best I can and raise a healthy, happy little man. So that's the short version of my path.
So Tui, talk to us a little bit about some of the bumps in the road here. What are the things that stick out for you around the stigmas and about, your journey? Because you have worked so hard to get these girls, and now working with the courts and getting your son in custody. And, you told me before you want 12, and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
7 is a lot, Tui. How are you keeping your head above water? But what have been some of your challenges?
A lot of my challenges that I've faced is just the bias, like the big bias that I get, especially in like early learning, early education. Like when we would go to like doctor's visits, doctors would only speak to mom, right? I'm sitting there too in the room. I'm like, well, you're not addressing me. I helped create this child. Like, what am I? Just a shadow or something? Like I'm not here. A lot of questions would be directed to mom. I'm like, well, I know the answer to that. Yeah, she was 7'3". She was born on this date. She doesn't like to eat carrots. She doesn't like to do this. Like I know those questions, but you're directing them to mom. Like it's like a lot of, I think like the stigma is that, because I think the stigma is that society feels that like mom just knows how to be a mom, and dads don't know crap about being a parent. And it's like, well, moms don't have a book that says how to be a mom. Neither do dads. So what makes them more important than me? Like I helped create this kid I helped co-create this creation, this seed. I'm here to help blossom it. That was one big stigma, like and it just all across the board, just like the way society looks at that is just like, oh, your only job is to provide. As long as you got a check and you're able to put food on the table, that's your job. But like what I've learned, like coming across my whole journey, is that dads are way more than just providers. We're mentors, we're counselors, we're physical trainers, right? Because the ages of my kids are from 1 to 14. My twins were my first go. I had twins my first go, and they're 14 now. And like, I'm training them. I'm their personal trainer. I wake them up 5 a.m. Let's go for a run. And this is stuff I've learned through the military. Let's go on a run, right? Come back home. Let's do some push-ups. Yeah, they hate me for it, but they see the fruits of their labor, right? When they go to compete and they're like, damn, Dad, I'm moving a lot faster. I'm like, the coach is complimenting me on my improvement. Even like Like with my other daughter, my oldest, she's in orchestra. She plays the cello, and she hates to practice. And I'm like on her, like, come on, let's go practice. I used to play the saxophone when I was young. You know, it's pretty similar, but you still, the more you practice, the better you get. So like just staying on them, being like that. I think that's like I didn't have nobody to teach me how to be a father, so I'm learning as I go. Right, I'm learning
So
everything.
it's phenomenal. Can I ask you what drives you to do this?
My
I mean,
life,
you've known
my
many
kids,
men that don't.
my kids is like I've been through a lot of struggle. I've been like I don't know if you guys can see like I'd gotten shot right here, an inch away from my heart. They took half of my lung out on this side, and like when I was there, when I got shot, like I died. I was dead for 3 minutes, and I seen some stuff. Like I don't want to promote religion, you know, but like I want to say I seen God. Didn't see his face, but every time I look at his face, but like my experience through that has taught me, like, bro, life is short, and you do not want your kids to go through the same life you went. Go have to make the same decisions that you made, and look what the decisions that you made landed you. Now you laying in a hospital bed fighting for your life. Right. And I did not want my kids to go through that at all. I did not want my kids to feel the pain I felt where it's Father's Day and you're sitting there like, well, my dad's not here. Here, Mom, happy Father's Day. Thank you for always being there. Right. Like I didn't want my kids to have to go through that. Like when they would ask, oh, is your dad here? Well, that's kind of a person like my dad's not here. What do you want me to do? Like you feel like an outsider. Right, compared to everybody else whose dad is there. That's what just kept me like I didn't want my kids going through the same stuff I went through. I wanted them to have a better life.
Knowing what it's like not to have a connection with the father and the longing that's always there, and then your own life experience said, "I'm not going to let that happen for my own kids." And I'm sure Stephen, Stasi, the same thing. You know, that sense of wanting to be connected and making up for things you may not have had yourself, and they're going to do it right this time. So thanks to I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Deb.
Joey, how do you feel the courts treated you when you were asking for 50-50?
Oh, like crap, man. Like, they don't give a crap. They don't care. I think the court system's like a business, man. The more repeat customers they have, the longer they're in business. So I would go into court systems and they're like, oh, yeah, we have these facilitators you could come talk to. Okay, yeah, I'll come talk to them. I can't afford a lawyer, you know, so I'll come talk to them. They'll show me how to fill out paperwork. Yep, I'll come talk to them, fill out the paperwork. Then I'll come back next week and it's a different facilitator. And that facilitator is like, well, why did you fill out this paperwork? You're not supposed to fill out this paperwork. Well, you just had another facilitator tell me what to do. It's like you're having me do the runaround, and like, are you really here to help me? And then then it comes to the point where then it comes start feeling like, oh, I see you're giving the mom the right information that she needs in order to win this case or get custody of their kid. But with dad, it's like you get treated like you intentionally deter me from where I'm trying to go. You know, and my whole thing with my co-creators is I told them, it's like, I'm never, ever trying to take your kid away from you. That is not my goal. I'm just trying to be in the picture too.
Yeah. Right. It's about co-parenting. It's about both parents' love. Yeah. So Stasi, go ahead, Dana.
I wanted to reflect on something, Tui, that you brought up, and I'm sure that Stephen and Stasi, you've experienced this, is that there are real structural gender bias in the way that we practice medicine. So as a primary care pediatrician, as you all know, we see your babies about 15 times within the first 5 years of life, starting after birth, and then 2 weeks for that weight check, and then 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 15 months, 18 months. That's a lot of visits. And as I'm listening to your conversation, it's really clear that the way that we are taught and the way that we train is that we screen for maternal depression, right? And there are standardized, validated tools for maternal depression. Have you lost interest in your daily activities? Do you feel sad most of the time, sometimes all of the time? And these questions actually have become quality matrix that organizations such as the American Academy or other sort of guiding bodies for healthcare want to make sure that we're sort of meeting these pillars, like screening 90% of our mothers for depression. The same is true when we ask about nutrition. We are taught to always ask and encourage breastfeeding. And then, is the woman signed up for Woman, Infant, and Child in Children's Program, our WIC programs? And so I could only imagine how that feels as a father to have the visit so geared towards the mother.
Yeah. And that was one of my questions that I would ask the pediatricians all the time is like, why is there a WIC, that Women, Infant, and Child? What about a MIC? Where's a MIC? Where's the MIC for us fathers that are here, that are trying to be involved, that are trying to, change the whole stigma around?
Well, there's a great picture of a skeleton sitting in the front window of the passenger side of the car, and it's his dad waiting for the WIC appointment.
well, we're trying to do some work around, right?
We are. There's a lot going on.
But one thing that comes up for me, Dana, is because that hits home for me because and my son's mom was never clinically diagnosed, but through meeting with the trauma specialist, when there was like a breakdown between us, she had a mental health breakdown, and she had mentioned, somewhere along the lines that she was feeling that she could potentially have postpartum depression, but that never came up in screenings. And why are partners not addressed in that, right? Like, why? Because she's very prideful, right? So I know that she wasn't going to be inclined to say that in a doctor's appointment, right? And actually seek help. I had to actually get her into like couples therapy when we were together. She was not like going after that on her own. And so that's one thing, is like, there were no tools for me to like, now that she has said this, where do I go to now get her help, right? There was like no, and so that was a hard truth for me to swallow, is like, yeah, I mean, I think a big thing that led to our separation was her not being herself hormonally, and then not willing to get the help once the breakdown happened. It then became very adversarial. So
Stasi, you got some support early on, and you still have, from home visiting. How did that happen, and how's that working out? How do you feel about it? What do you get from it?
Mute.
Unmute.
Oh, you got your camera. There you go.
Sorry about that. Yeah, it's definitely resourceful, and I've been lucky to have it for at least almost 2 years now. Through it was through CYS Community Youth Services, because I used to be in there before where I'm at now. And they have, it's parents as teachers, and I've worked with Kristen for that most of that time, and they provided me, diapers and proper hygiene for Olivia, and toys, and during the Christmas season, put me on the adopt a family, which is, all those things have definitely allowed me to kind of at times stay afloat. When there was a point in time when I don't even get WIC, because WIC pretty much told me, you're not the mom, so you're not going to give you information and allow you to access the resources. I was like, all right. So, but she doesn't even have custody. She's like, sorry, you're not the mom. I was like, so she don't have custody, but I'm not the mom. What does that mean? I ended up not even pursuing it. I just let it go. I don't receive WIC because of that stuff. Even though I'm 110% the full-time parent, and the mom's not even in the picture.
You and I need to talk about this offline, because that surprises me. So we were talking about how Kristen and the relationship with her helps you with your relationship with Olivia. Can you talk about that? Like her behavior, understanding her?
Yeah, there's been a lot of times where I had questions that, just what Olivia's going through, through stages of being a toddler, and she just was been there to be that person to answer questions that just, I guess when you're in the situation, you kind of see it from a different view. And she was able to allow me to see things like, she seems to be doing this and that, and she'd be like, oh, have you done this, or have you done that? And like when she's teething, she'd do certain things that I just wasn't clicking with me, and then I'd be like, oh yeah, that's totally what it is. And or her potty training right now that was another thing. I was like, yeah, I'm trying to get her to get potty training, and it's just the stuff that I think seems like it's basic, but sometimes it's just another view of it, and sometimes you don't see it. But yeah, she's definitely given me books. She's sent me a lot of like these pamphlet things that I can read about during the stages of her life that, you know, she's currently in. She will send things, flyer, like things that, you know, give you like an understanding of what they're going through at that age and everything, which has made a huge difference in being able to prepare for her, you know, when she gets to her different stages in her life.
Cool. So Kristen,
So I was going to comment that you know there's all the education and ideas and suggestions that can come along from others to any of us as parents, mothers and fathers. But there's
Right.
also the experience of learning with your child that they teach us, right? I mean, the dirty secret
Yeah,
is children
we're learning
develop
too.
they develop us.
Yeah,
And
we're
I'm
learning too.
curious how the three of you think about what your children have taught you, how you've grown from them, what being in relationship with your children has brought you, and then how you've grown together as a team. I'm really curious about that. Stephen first, Stasi, then Tui.
Yeah, sure. You know, this is actually a perfect to what I was talking about right before we got on this call. My son just entered the Y stage, right? And so it's funny because I talked to other parents about this, and the dads in my cohort, thankfully, a lot of very like forward thinking dads. And it's like we talk about the difference between a parent that guides a child or a parent that just says, well, no, because I said so, right? And they don't give reasoning to their child and don't explain things and don't really like show them the world. So for me, my son has really taught me to embrace parenting in a curious way, and to you know, not just tell him to do things because I said so or whatnot, right? And so last night there was a couple situations. One was like he wanted to get this chalk down, and like we're playing race cars, and like he wanted to get the chalk down, and like he made me get the chalk down, and I was like, well, this is for outside, so we're not gonna like play with this right now. And he's like, Daddy, why? And then I kept thinking about it, and I was like, all right, you know what? Let's just let you learn this for yourself. So I said, okay, I'll get a piece of paper and we'll try to use the chalk. I don't think it's going to work very good inside, but we'll try. And then it worked on the paper and it was fine. Like it wasn't coming off. And I was like, oh, I guess you were right, buddy. The chalk works. So, and then he was in the bath. He was in the bath and he wanted like I got for like Christmas, he had a couple of those like little Paw Patrol like bath bombs, you know, one of them was red. And he's like, we're sitting in the bath and he's like, I want to turn it red. And I'm like, oh, we don't have any of those. And he's like, I want to turn it red. And I'm like, but buddy, we don't have any more. And he's like, Daddy, why? And I was like, well, because Daddy only bought so many and we only had a couple, so I'm gonna have to get you more. And I'm like, is that cool? And he's like, cool. So it's like just for me, like learning how to really explain things and let him experience the world for himself and figure out the way that things work, instead of just telling him, you know, hey, this is why, or, you know, just listen to me, just follow Dad. You know what I mean? So
Excellent.
Tui, Stasi, how about you guys? What have you learned from your kids?
Just patience and you know, tolerance and kind of just I guess you say humbling, kind of, because there's a lot of times where, you know, she's like he was talking about the why and all that. There's been times where I'll be like, don't do that, you're gonna get hurt, and she goes right and then she gets hurt, and it's like I've seen her go as far as, you know, getting up and act like she didn't get hurt because she didn't, you know, she didn't want me to see it, because then I would have been right. But it's like at the same time I could have prevented her from doing it by just stopping her and being like, don't do that. But there's just times where, you know, it's kind of a live and learn type of situation, and it's just kind of funny hearing him talk about that, because there's been times where she's also, you know, in situations with like where I wanted to, you know, be like, don't do that, and, you know, just because. But sometimes it's just it's crazy how they the way they grasp things differently than us, and how we're kind of pretty much we are learning as much as they are learning, especially if it's your first kid. And there's that, you know, constant just you and them bond. It makes it a whole different perspective, and learning the patience. And I was never this patient and tolerant, and, you know, my whole perspective of how I look at life was totally different before. I had my daughter.
Cool. Tui, how about you?
I have to go with what Stasi said is like patience, like being patient with my kids was one of the tough ones, and then also realizing that they are half of you.
Oh,
So half of the stuff that they do, you did. So why are you gonna get mad at them for trying to be stubborn or not trying to be stubborn, but trying to be Mr. Know-it-all, right? Or Mrs. Know-it-all, because that was me. When I was young, couldn't nobody tell me nothing,
Yeah, so true.
like, and I'd sit there and I notice my kids and I see how they move, their little mannerisms, and it's just like, man, you are just a little me. You are a little me, and I got to be patient. Like I'll cook them dinner, eat, bam, they're done eating, and then I'll go and make me something to eat, and then next thing you know, they're lining up. Can I get some, Dad? Can I have some? Damn, I just made you some. All right, here you go. I guess I'll starve today. But I love my kids, and like I wouldn't trade my experiences and my memories that I made with them for all the money in the world. Like,
Yeah.
So Dana, do you hear the relational health, the beauty and the love of the relational health coming through in every one of these stories, right, Dana? What do you think?
I just have a smile on my face, and it brings me such joy to hear you talk about your children. It's actually really beautiful and so endearing. We think a lot about resiliency and what that means and where it comes from. And ultimately, resiliency comes from love. And it's super clear to me that the three of you love your children so much.
And resiliency is bidirectional, right? Because it's not only for your dear children, but also for yourself.
Yeah.
It's that the relational power for each other really, really matters. And I'm really curious, the movement in Washington State, how is this critical element of father engagement, father participation, countering the bias, right? Seeing that fathers are equally important in every child's life, where we have a system and a belief structure that doesn't support that. And what are you up against? And what's breaking through? What are you seeing as emergent?
Yeah, so it's been a lot of building, right? So we started in 2017 with this 20 partners. There was no legislation or governor saying, go out and do this. It was a group of people saying, we're failing our fathers. And so very organic. And of course, at the beginning, you're just trying to figure that out. So we asked dads. We went out and we surveyed dads, and we said, what's the most important thing? What's the number one thing? They said, more time with our kids, obviously. Number two was the stigmas. And number three was no services for dads. So what we did then was we went out and we asked everybody in the state, where are you? What are you doing? And then we started doing a series of trainings for professionals around fatherhood inclusion. So we've done home visiting and early development, and we're doing one tomorrow on men's mental health. We've talked about domestic violence. We've got all these different topics. But there have probably been about 700 providers around the state that have participated in these monthly conversations, and it's rippling out. People are changing their behavior in their practice, in the way they're thinking about fathering. And so where we really are getting traction is public health. Super, super exciting. People in public health are understanding fatherlessness is a public health crisis. This is a really huge part of what they need to be doing. And they have such high contact with families in the early years. I mean, we just ragged on WIC a minute ago, and that surprises me, Stasi, because there's a lot of energy in our state to change WIC. So I'm going to talk to you about where you went, and I'm going to figure out what the heck is going on there. But
that was a couple of years ago. So
yeah, okay. So I'll cut them some slack. Maybe they've changed their tune. Maybe they've changed their tune since then. Public health has really come to the table. I think we also have had a lot of traction with formerly justice involved dads. So we do a lot of work with corrections and juvenile rehab. We're about to take parenting dads classes into the juvenile justice facilities, because whether you're a dad now or you're going to become a dad, talking about your feelings and how you might relate to your partner and what your relationship was with your dad, all of those things are important for young men that are becoming men, and that process. So the world of child support is always huge, and we're trying so hard to get people to understand that money isn't it, guys. I mean, yes, it's part of the relationship, but people see that as the pillar of the relate. That's the only reason that dads need to be in kids' lives, is for that. So I think the way we're really getting traction is around people understanding fathers are nurturers. Fathers are part of their early childhood development of their kids. And that if we don't make it in those first 5 years, there's often a huge break and we can't move past that. So we're working with all of those different systems about what does fatherhood inclusion look like, and doing it really strongly by lifting up the voices of fathers. Because these narratives, like you said, Dana, how can you not get it? You know, when you listen to people talk about what they've been through, and so many dads have said to us, I was ready to give up. We have a young man who followed his wife to ex-wife to Washington from a place where he had a job and he had a support network, and he came here and he had a huge child support bill because he used to have a job and he didn't have a job anymore and no one there to support him. And he battled and battled and battled through a whole year of feeling like, I'm just going to give up. And he was with a group of people that said, whoa, wait a minute, your dad, you are critically important to your son. And they all wrote a note to him and said, we'll see you in a week. And in a week's time, he came back and they said, okay, what'd you think about? And he said, I thought about the fact that that I wasn't going to give up. And I went to her and I said to her, I'm never giving up. I'm always, like you said, Tui, I'm always going to be part of his life, no matter what you think. And she said, I just didn't understand that. I didn't get that. And so now I get that. So really where we are coming to now is co-parenting.
And can I raise a question about the birthing center and birthing experiences for fathers? Because when I was at HRSA, I was at a research gathering around fatherhood, and there was some very clear research that the father's presence at the time of a birth predicts whether or not they stay with the mother of the baby or not. The presence of a father at the birth of a baby predicts them staying a lifetime with that baby's involvement.
Well, and skin-to-skin contact right after the birth is incredibly important, and you can't do that if you're not part of it. But oftentimes dads tell us stories of not even being allowed in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Many. When did you first lose trust in the healthcare system? One of my dads. And he said, at the birth of my kid, I went in, I dropped her off, I went back out, I came back in and they wouldn't let me in the birthing room. And he said, well, why not? Well, because we can't. I mean, it was just a non-reason. And he said, I just about got my butt thrown in jail because I said, I will be in there. She wants me in there. And, big African-American guy. And he said, I looked scary. They didn't want me around. And I was going to be part of that child's birth. And they called security. And the security guy happened to be a Black guy. And he mediated this with the medical professional to get this dad into the birthing room with his child. What is wrong with that picture, guys?
I actually think that we need a reframing here.
Yeah.
He did not look scary. He was a Black man.
No, that's what he said to me.
He did not look scary. It's that society perceived him as scary.
That is right. But that's how he tells the story. He says, here I am, big Black guy, scary. No, that's his words, Dana, which is sad. That's how he is viewed. Well, Tui, you've told me before, every time you go into court, they say anger management, right? They see this, this guy who presents as Black all tatted up. Oh, you must need anger management.
Yep. It's like they already make a prejudgment of me or of a person just based on my skin color and my body frame. And it's like, you don't know. I've done my time. I've been in jail and stuff, but I've been in Iraq. I was in OIF and OEF. All right. So like, you don't know me like that, Your Honor. Like you don't know the dangers and the horrors I've seen so that you can sit over here and judge me.
Yeah.
You don't know the things I've had to do.
Judged all the time.
So we have about 5 minutes and 5 more minutes. And I'd like to give each of you a chance to, what's a sort of a take-home message that you would wish to have those that have been listening in to carry away from your conversation, especially again about fatherhood, early childhood, and the meaning it has to you, but also the changes that are needed. So each of you take a chance to let us know your final remarks. Stephen, you want to go first? Then Stasi, then Tui, then Ann, then Dana.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think in the broader sense of this work, I just think more resources for dads. That's something since I came on board with this, this early relational health work, as well as even the work with the Fatherhood Council. I mean, that's why I got involved, was because I felt like there were a lack of resources, that I didn't have resources. And if I didn't have resources, I had to fight for my kid, a ton of financial resources, mental and emotional resources, and resiliency. And so I knew that took a lot out of me in a lot of ways. And I feel like I'm a pretty grounded individual. So I felt, that's why I wanted to get involved in this work, because I felt like there's got to be so many dads, and we see there are so many dads that just lack resources. And so I think in a broader terms, it's just like more resources for dads all the way across the boards, and looking at dads in a different way. And I think, and I do leave like these type of conversations hopeful, because I do think that we're doing great work in Washington, and I see, research of kind of starting to change that stigma a bit. So, but we still got a lot of work to do. So
phenomenal, Stephen. Thank you. Stasi, your thoughts?
I know you had mentioned in a bit ago why I do, or why he Tui does it, and or just in general why we do it. I guess the best thing I can say is I came from a family of 14, and none of them were my blood. 11 of us were adopted, and the one thing I never got over growing up was the fact that none of them were my blood. I could never, see, my family in them and all that. And my daughter's like my mini me, everything. Like, people point out the way she walks is like me, the way she talks. And I mean, she just, everything about her, me. I'm from Russia. I was adopted at 3 from Russia. And when she was born, I mean, from day one, she looked identical to me. Like, she looked just like me. And that's just one of the things that kind of comes with all, the love and all that. It's like, no matter what, there's nothing in the world, like Tui said too. Also, nothing in the world that could, that you could do that would change anything for what it is. Like, she can be gone for an hour or two, and I feel like, like there's something missing. Like when someone's like heartbroken, it's what it feels like every time. It's kind of weird. I'll go drop her off at her grandma's once in a while, and I feel like kind of bored in my house and want to go pick her up, even though I needed that break. But because of that love, that's how it is. Crazy.
Well, Stacey, none of that's crazy and none of that's weird. All of that's beautiful. That's ERH, straight at it. And we're talking about it unapologetically, truthfully, and deeply honestly. I really, Stasi, so appreciate that. And Tui, your final thoughts.
What are you looking for, like words of encouragement?
Whatever you would like to have the audience hear, and then take away from your thoughts.
I would say, don't, that old saying, don't judge a book by cover, right? I feel like this isn't the 90s no more. We're in 2023 now, right? And it's different, right? Back in the 90s, it was all about moms, and moms were the only one that could help raise a kid, right? Now we're in 2023, and we got a co-parent, right? What I like to say is, it took 2 of us to make them. It would take 2 of us to raise them, right? So I want to be able to change society, the stigmas that we have, so that our next generation can build upon, right? Our next generation could get that much better than what us fathers have gone through now, right? Just figure out your why, stick to it, keep going, keep grinding.
Well, making visible relationships matter to you. Relationships matter to your children, and these relationships are critical for the future. So I'm glad that you gentlemen are bringing this forth, and will continue through that work. And Ann Stone, final thoughts?
I guess I would just start by saying thank you to Stephen and Tui and Stasi for telling your stories and sharing your moments with a bunch of strangers. I am always humbled by how generous you guys are with your spirit and your love, and sharing that with other people is so powerful. So thank you for doing that. And to folks out there that are listening, I would say, always assume that dad wants to be there. Don't assume that he doesn't. We make assumptions that he doesn't, and that we have to pull him kicking and screaming. That isn't true. There's a reason why he's not there. There's a whole bunch of things that have happened why he's not there. So what could we do differently? And how do we think about the couple? That every child deserves the right to be cherished by both parents. And So assume he wants to be there and that both parents have a role, and we'll be good. And thanks for having us. It's a great discussion, and I hope you will translate this discussion into whatever perspective you come to this conversation from.
Phenomenal. Dana?
What I'm taking away from this conversation is just the immense amount of safety, stability, and nurturing that you three as fathers provide, but that fathers as a whole, they provide so much magic in the life of children, right? Those moments of walking down the street, holding hands, sharing a laugh, even Tui, as you were saying, like even waking up at 5 a.m, and when you feel like as a dad, you're like being a little hard on your kid, like those are moments that motivate. And as a pediatrician, I know I'm going to dedicate myself to making sure that I always include the father even more than I do, and thinking about when we schedule follow-up appointments, rather than just scheduling them with the mom, who typically comes 90% of the time, it's the mother, starting to ask, should we reschedule the next appointment around when the father can be available? Small changes, but really important.
Thanks, Dana. I'm so glad you said that.
The movement's alive. The fatherhood contribution to relational health is big. Stephen's carrying that, and you all likewise bringing it right into the center of the way we think about the future of relational well-being. I'm incredibly grateful to your time together, and as always, thanks for being together here and for your leadership in Washington to make this all visible. Stephen, I'll see you in DC. Stasi and Tui, thanks for sharing and joining with us today. And Dana, I'll see you soon. So
Yeah, of course.
be well all.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right.